What's Maddox up to for the summer?
Huh?
What's Maddox up to for the summer?
He is working.
Where at?
He works at Erin Hills as a floor caddy. Because when he turns 18, he can work as a full caddy then. And so he does that 3 days a week. And then he golfs and plays soccer 4 nights a week. And if I scream at him enough, he piano practices 3 times a week. So that's what he's been up to, so.
Any ski practice or training during the summer, or does he get the summer off from that?
Summer, he's pretty much done at summer, cause he's just like, I'm done with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get on to soccer, having fun and doing whatever, but then by the end of summer, he's like, when is it gonna snow? So it's just,
Yeah.
and I'm like, wow, we got 2 months. 2 months before we were in Alabama last week.
Oh,
It's hotter here. It wasn't.
Is it?
One day it was 98. So.
We're in Alabama.
Birmingham.
Which probably felt way worse because of humidity.
It was about like Sunday down there, so it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Very
We've
nice.
done the Alabama Gulf Coast.
We are live.
Rather than Florida.
I heard it's beautiful.
Okay, so we've returned from executive session and we are now in open. There are no public comments tonight. So we're gonna move on to committee reports and I'm gonna turn it over to Chris for PPC.
Wait.
Just real quick point of order, we have.
Oh, I missed, oh, it's because I crossed it off. Crossed it off before we did it. You're correct.
All right, Madam President, I'd like the motion to accept the resignation and approve of the new hires as presented in closed session.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion passes. Okay, so now, no public comments. Moving on to committee reports.
So now it's me.
Yep.
All right, give me just a second. I'm using 2 screens, so I'm trying to make sure I have them. So for our policy meeting, we met and talked about the Neola policy review process. As you know, in the last month, we approved kind of a blanket. And Tina walked us through what that process will be. So after I'm done here, just giving the overview, I'll turn it over to Tina so she can share that process with you. It's better than me doing it. And Amy and I both agreed and thought, yes, let's bring that to the board for the board to look at and discuss. The second item that was discussed and presented was on policies 2264 and 2266 of the Title IX update. And Tina took us through at least the general updates that are coming from Neola and what is happening in the staff and with the staff and the changes there. And I'll again let her explain some of that. Amy and I did talk through it, and there is a lot of uncertainty with that policy. And so we wanted to, we both agreed that we wanted to bring it to the board, to have the board discuss that in more detail. And I'll share my opinion with that when it comes time and we do that. And again, Tina will share the details of what the district is going to do in regards to those new requirements. The last thing was Tina presented the curriculum and her and Amy's process of selection and transparency and what will be coming forward. And again, she'll be presenting that this evening as well. So we'll let her provide those details. But before I do, just a compliment again on a job very well done to both of you on that. It was exceptional. And I think the board will be very excited to see how she has organized the material and what she's presenting.
That it?
That's it.
Thank you, Chris. Okay.
Would you like me to go through the Neola process right now? Because it is not on my superintendent report, but the other 2 are.
Sure.
Okay, just really quickly, I did send it to all of you, so you all have it. For the public's edification,
Basically what happened is we have decided to, as a sweeping motion, as we noticed that there are some areas that we are vulnerable in, the board approved 5-0 to hold the Neola policies in place as a safeguard for the district in the event as we continue to outline and go through this process. So it is understood that the following series have gone through the process in its entirety and will not be part of the process outlined below. The zeros are the bylaws, the 3,000s are professional staff, the 4,000 are support staff, and the 6,000 are finance. The timeline for the Neola Board Policy Review involves several key aspects, including preparation, review, revision, and the approval stages. August, all non-choice policies, those are the ones that have no red ink. There are no decisions to make. All of them across the board that are not of the 0s, 3s, 4s, or 6s will be given to the PPC committee. Once the PPC committee says yes, then we will send to the full board, and the full board then will review at the next board meeting. Please understand that if no changes are made, there won't be a vote. If any changes between PPC or the full board, it will require a vote, okay? Because they've already been approved. In September, we will be looking at the 1,000s, which is administration, and the 7,000s, which is property. These are all ones that have choice, the red ink ones. So same process, we'll take it to the PPC committee, PPC committee will make recommendations, we may have to come back, we'll have to toss that back and forth. We take it to the full board takes a look at it. Again, we look to vote on any of those changes that may take place, right? Because now you're gonna be making choices, we need to vote on those policies at that time, because then they would supersede previous. October, we will be doing the 5,000 series, which is students. Again, same process. November, we will be looking at the 2,000 series, which is programming, same process. December, we will be looking at the 8,000, which is operations, and the 9,000, which is relations, same process. We will submit to Neola for final rendering and upload to board docs in December, January, okay? At any point, a member of the community may ask the district office directly for a policy. This language has been added to the board policies webpage on the Hartland-Lakeside School District website. We will monitor the implementation process and provide support as needed. We will schedule periodic reviews to ensure policies remain current and effective, and we will establish a continuous improvement cycle for policy review going forward. Any questions?
Any questions?
The only question I had is, you said I know you provided that handout to us at PPC, but I don't see it as an attachment in anything you've mailed out to the general board.
I will get to the general.
Just so that everybody else, in case they're curious. Thank you.
Very good.
All right, Matt.
Sure, so Chris Haglund and I had our second meeting as a finance committee.
Was it 2 hours?
No, we kept it to about an hour 15.
Yeah, we shrunk it a little bit.
Amy is gracious enough for the first probably 45 minutes of the hour, kind of school finance 101, mainly around like taxation and how that works, which is kind of important with our upcoming August meeting. So I think it was helpful for us to kind of make sure we understood that process and kind of where our funds come from and things of that nature. So that was super helpful. So we spent a little bit of time on that. You know, after that, the monthly work, everything was pretty routine. You know, we reviewed the payments and things of that nature, and no concerns there. I think I won't steal too much of Amy's thunder, but the good news is, you know, we finish up our fiscal year here at the end of June. We ended in a very positive situation from our general fund. There had been a budget to transfer a substantial amount of money over to our building fund as kind of an investment for future improvements, and Amy's gonna recommend we do that. So I think that's kind of kudos to the district management of our finances over the last fiscal year. And then the final thing, we have the upcoming meeting here in August, so we provided some feedback to Amy regarding some things that we may want to consider going into the that presentation that gets presented to the community at the August meeting. We're going to discuss that a little bit more at our next August meeting and figure out what does and doesn't make sense. It was really us kind of coming in with a fresh set of eyes on things that we would have liked to known or seen or might help better tell a story for going forward and planning for us. So I think that's gonna be the focus of our August meeting is do that ahead of the larger community meeting in August. Later in August after that, early August meeting. I think that's it.
Awesome. Amy, did you have anything?
No.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay, we're gonna move to consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda?
Okay, Chris seconded it. All in favor? Aye. Okay, consent agenda approved. Let me know when you're ready. You ready? Okay. Tina?
Yes, thank you. It's quite small, so if you need to kind of look closer, it's hard to tell, but I can walk you through and talk you through the entire document. Front here.
I'm gonna go move up. I'll admit it. I can't read that.
So as it pertains to the curriculum, annually, we do need to review and make sure that all of our curriculum are accounted for and that the board approves it. If there are any new pieces, obviously we will display that to you this evening and look for approval. We started this kind of journey on our curriculum at the very beginning because it was actually kind of tied to finance. But it was really important for us to take a look at where we're at, so working with our teams. K2, 3, 5, 6, 8. This is K2. This is all of the curricular pieces that are taught, purchased, implemented at North. I will say that we did start out that process where we had many things that were not part of this. And we were like, where is that? Or where, you know, how is this being utilized? Is it supplemental? And you know, how are you using it? So you'll see here, we've got our literacy program up top. All of that literacy work is not related to Act 20. Okay, Act 20 is the new reading law for the state. So this is all something that our district does separately. And then math, we've got our illustrative math, complete with the link. We have our science curriculum, our social studies curriculum, and you can see down here all of our standards-based grading for music education, art education, and physical education. Nothing new happening over at North with curriculum, but I will show you a document here in a minute to show you a little bit about what we're not doing after having looked at some pieces. Again, here we have 3-5. Again, the literacy piece up here is you know, our literacy program. And then we have math, illustrative math. We have engineering at 3-5 through Project Lead the Way. We have science of flight, energy exploration, and robotics and automation. And that again is tagged in here, so it's a direct link. We have our science through National Geographic, again, not new. Social studies. 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, all of them are outlined by what grade level they're doing and then a link to where the resources are. And again, standards-based grading for music education, art education, and physical education. I think now would be a really great time for me to share with you that last year when we came to do this curriculum piece, we basically put out all of the state standards for each area. And that was our curriculum kind of review. So the reason we're doing it this way is because if you approve this evening, I would like to get it out onto our website so that our families know this is what we're learning about, right? Because 3rd grade science, you know, all I have is my memory, right? So what are we talking about? Again, it goes back to that we're partners in this education process. Nothing new on this curriculum. 6th through 8th grade. The yellows will be new pieces, so I'll be sharing those with you momentarily. But again, it's the literacy piece, the math, illustrative math. You'll recall this last year you did approve for the literacy piece to go forward, as well as the math for 7th and 8th grade. It's not new, but it was new to us this year, so we did go ahead and approve that. Social studies, we will be looking at that this year, this coming school year. You'll see that from me in a minute. Here's where some new pieces are, the yellow ones. So we worked with, and this is a huge shout out to HLEF in the grant process, because we probably wouldn't have been able to do this unless they had funded it. So really exciting that they said yes to this. It's the Project Lead the Way app for technology, and science and technology. And what they did is they improved the training, the iPads and the covers. So to speak to some of that, we needed some new stuff, some new things, some new items to kind of start getting kids interested and involved in what they're doing. And I think we've got some areas where we can look for possible changes and improvements. One of the things that I know that we are working on with the app technology is looking at creating PSAs for the district, whether it's a behavioral PSA to help our littles and do some skit work with some videoing and creating movies and things of that nature, or if it's creating games, if it's creating Quizlets, whatever it might be, we're gonna be working with our students to create that. It includes the training of teachers as well. We had 6 teachers go this summer and get trained, and it all was on the dime of HLEF for a grand total of 11,000 something. So really kudos, thank you for that. The next little piece is Spanish 2. This is new and it is provided as a cost savings measure. Previously, these students would have driven to Arrowhead High School to take this course. We just, looking at budgeting and trying to figure things out, we are going to provide our own Spanish 2 course here. And it was less than $1,000 to provide that curriculum, which is a pretty big cost savings when you talk about what Arrowhead charges for us to have our kids over there. The question did come up at PPC regarding, well, are they gonna be considered second-year Spanish students? We will find that out. We don't know that at this time, but certainly something that we are inquiring about, and I would hope that in partnership as a feeder school, Arrowhead would absolutely accept that. Next up is that Open Sci, which again, you'll recall my first year, we kind of went through this process and approved this Open Sci science. All of our systems are right there for you, so any family member that wants to know what they're working on and what we're teaching, they can take a look in that within that realm. Here's the next group that's kind of fun, different. We have our encore classes, so we have those classes that are electives, that we have that special area of time where we want students to really have exploratory experiences and high interest classes as they begin to think of their post-secondary opportunities. So this year we will be offering theater to 6th through 8th grade, investigative journalism, which is researching topics and writing as an investigative reporter. Personal finance for 8th graders, learning basic financial literacy, stock market, and budgeting. We are looking at movie making for 7th through 8th grade. We are learning to create scenes from images captured, PSA announcements, things of that nature. Outdoor education for 8th graders. Possible offering right now, it's trying to find somebody to come in and teach that. What we would be looking for with that is learning the importance of park systems, environment, and ecosystems, but that curriculum is not yet to be decided. Ceramics, it's experimenting with clay, which is kind of neat. We have a kiln that has kind of gone unused for a little while, so we working with getting that up and running and firing, and so that they can kind of experiment with creating different ceramic pieces as well as glazing and firing them. And then we also have comic art and illustration. It's an art class designed to create comic book style artwork while telling a story. So kids have a pretty broad spectrum of things that they are able to choose from. In addition, we have music, 6th through 8th grade. In 6th grade, you're required by state statute or state law to take a choral or instrumental or general music course. Our students here at Hartland take either choral or band. In 7th and 8th grade, that broadens, and they can continue on with band and choir and or continue on to elect from the previously stated pieces. So that's kind of a rundown of our curriculum. And again, those 3 new pieces are the Project Lead the Way and Spanish. So then, as any questions on that at this time?
I think in 6th grade, we used to have a 3rd option for students if they didn't wanna do, that was non-performative, and it was like the history music, we still have it, she didn't mention that, right?
Yep, and it wasn't history, it's a,
World music?
it was world music, or they offered world music, they also did like a, general music. It becomes a place where kids who don't wanna be there, don't wanna be there. And when you don't wanna be there, how, you know, it's not productive. No, it's not productive at all. I taught it for years and eventually just got to the point myself where I taught either band, well, both band and choir, because I was small in the school. But that's what we did because it was a nightmare to try to teach that because kids did not participate. It was a behavioral issue, it was a problem.
So what are you gonna do for kids who don't wanna do a music performative?
They have to choose, there's no what ifs.
And they can skip the concert then if they don't wanna perform?
It'll affect their grade, I'm sure, but yeah, that's.
Okay.
Yep, that's the model. Any other questions on that? No, okay, so here's the other piece that we were kind of speaking to, and you've heard this in finance, you've heard this all year. We had a long list of programs and curriculum and different pieces, supplemental pieces that, you know, for lack of a better word, we just kind of, I think, just went, oh yeah, we did that, and went kind of unchecked. We were just kept renewing and kind of taking a look at things. We're really deep diving into what are we spending our money on, and do we need them, and have they been approved? And so when we started going through, here you can see this kind of answers some of what finance has asked us for. What is the total cost for this piece of curriculum? So if I slide this all the way over, you will see then the budget code goes along with it, okay? So we were seeing purchases being made across the board in the district. I mean, there were pieces coming from IT, there were pieces coming from curriculum, there were pieces coming from buildings, there were pieces just all over. And it wasn't all, boom, one. So now it all comes out of curriculum, I manage the curriculum budget. So what we're gonna be able to do in the future is say, okay, this is what we're spending on this programming, this curricular piece, this is what we're spending on this is where we're spending money here. Hopefully that will give us a better idea and opportunity to budget. It goes back to that kind of zero-based budgeting piece. So the pieces down here are kind of from last year, kind of taking away from what are those things that we were doing. We also have that library common school funds, which we utilize through the librarian who is looking at different ways to bring in technology and different pieces into our library systems per the plan, the library plan, which we talked about this last year. So I think it's a good way to go. I think it's gonna keep everything in check and understood as far as what we have going on and what we're doing. Within that process, I did include in the board packet tonight, not for approval, it's just kind of our standard operating procedures with opt-out forms, new course proposals, guidelines for what we're gonna do when a student does opt out. Just to show that we do have processes in place, really is truly what that's for, because I know that there's been some question previously about policy or getting confused that policy is standard operating procedures, and it is not. Policy is policy, it's the guardrails, this is the legal piece of it. It's up to the district to create all of these other pieces. Shout out to just everybody, the principals, the coaches. This really has been a giant group effort. Specifically, Cindy Romanesco has really kind of taken on this challenge. She is our accounting specialist. And she's just really been able to organize it and get it all together. So really great work happening at district office in regard to these pieces. So it is the superintendent's recommendation, my recommendation, that we do approve the curriculum.
Go ahead.
Question. Is that approving this opt-out piece as well?
Well, I mean, the opt-out is we have it as a policy, it's.
I understand that. Here's my question, because
Sure.
I sent a question asking about what's our current policy, and here, as I read the policy as we got it, it reads to me like anybody who decides to opt out, we have to go through this following steps. Is that true? Is that kind of what we're saying?
Who's we?
Well, I read this, like this whole process is pretty detailed, right? It's like there's meetings, there's follow-up, there's curriculum developed, there's alternate education. It almost sounds like an IEP, like to that level of thing. So what's stopping, Johnny's struggling in math, so I wanna opt out of art, and you say, and I come up with a reason for that. And now I've gotta come up with an alternate education plan for Johnny every day that looks like, that goes through all these steps where he's gotta be put in a separate space and all these sorts of things. And it's pretty involved, like these steps. And there's nowhere in here that says, we can say, maybe we'll do this, or maybe it's just you opt out and you have a study hall and you go sit in another room or something. Like, this is, you know, I feel we're setting ourselves up that there's nowhere in here that says we can say no. So anybody that raises their hand can opt out, and now we've got to develop some sort of alternate curriculum for a person for an extended time period.
Yeah,
It's a lot of teacher resources, there could be costs involved with it. You know, there's a lot of things in here that seems like a lot for
Okay.
somebody who doesn't wanna go to this, and I'm afraid, does this turn school into a menu for parents? Well, I want this, but I don't want that, and so now I've got a plan where Johnny's gotta get all these steps, and I have to have regular check-ins with my teacher, and he can't feel isolated being removed from the class, and you know, it's like, there's just a lot here, and there's
No,
nowhere
and
it says we can say no.
Yeah.
Just-
I appreciate all of that, I absolutely do. This was born out of several parent complaints who opted out of one class that was non-core content area, that they were sat in the hallway or in the principal's office, there was no plan, they just went and were just sent. And there were a lot of really bad feelings from the kiddos, the parents, all of it. So I can short this down, right? Like I can pare this down, I have no problem doing that. I think the whole point of this is not to do a menu like you're describing it. It's in the event that a child opts out of something or a parent opts a child. Let's take the lunar eclipse, for example, right? Last year, we had the lunar eclipse, or solar eclipse, lunar eclipse. So we had the eclipse. I had 5 kiddos, parents say no, I don't want them out there. So what were they to do? Were they to sit in the office? Because everybody else is outside enjoying this awesome experience, right? I'm 6 years old. I don't know, my mom just said I can't do it. So I'm just gonna go sit in the office and everybody's gonna ask me 1,000 times, why are you sitting in the office? Well, because my mom said I can't do it. It just, right, erupts into a whole thing. Rather, we had some sheets that talked about the eclipse, a couple videos, so the kiddos still had that experience. Though it wasn't the same, they still got the education that they needed, right? So that would be an example of why do we need this process? Well, I don't know, I can't say for sure, but when we went through this process for the eclipse, I sent packets to our buildings and said, if anybody is out, this is what we can do. We also had some incredible staff. Our science staff were all geeking out over it, right? They were super excited and brought all kinds of different unique things in. But trying to create that alternative educational process so the child still got to have the experience even though they were opted out. And there wasn't all the, why aren't you doing it, right? They still had something that they were doing and could still participate in the planned activity. That's the point. Maybe this is over the top, maybe this is overdone, and if it is, this isn't part of curriculum. This was just to prove to individuals who felt like we didn't have policies or procedures in place for things like this.
Matt, if I'm understanding your question correctly, if you look at, if I'm understanding your question, and maybe I'm missing your point, if you go to the opt-out form, it specifically says there that please note the student cannot be excused from core curriculum classes. So anything that's part of the core curriculum, that's part of the state mandated stuff that we have to teach, they can't opt out of. So I think in the example you provided, they can't opt out of art or math, because those are specific state mandated education standards. So I think it has to deal more with like the lunar eclipse, or maybe sex ed, your growing changing bodies, more of those types of things.
I get that, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I guess my concern is it's really laying out a lot of, if somebody wants, I mean, the lunar eclipse was an hour or whatever, right, they're outside. I mean, this says we gotta come up with a plan, and then you've gotta check back regularly with the student, and then we've gotta make sure it meets their academic. There's just a lot here to avoid going to the eclipse. And I feel like if you say you're gonna do something like this and we don't, or we open it up, like we gotta take them somewhere that's ensuring it's welcoming and conducive to learning. Some of our classrooms that don't have windows might not be, some people might say aren't welcoming and conducive to learning. So it's like, well, we gotta go get him or her a classroom with a window, because that's what they really like for that hour, but we can't signal them out. So I don't wanna get something in writing that we're, creating a burden for you and every teacher for somebody who wants to opt out. And maybe opt-outs are rare and it's not something that concerns you. That's, just as I read through this, it's like, there's nowhere it says, maybe it is just they're gonna go sit in the office for an hour because they don't recite the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of the class or whatever, whatever
Right.
certain thing it is.
Right, no, I hear you, and it's in draft format, right? So, we're just trying to keep up with the communication that comes in and the feedback that we get from parents. So, absolutely hear you, and we'll make note of your concerns and bring back another kind of possible, not for here, but so that you guys can kind of take a look at it. Fair enough?
Sure.
Great.
One other question, kind of, because I had a similar concern with Matt in terms of not wanting to add to workload. Under item number 10, where it says continuous improvement, it says regularly review and update the school's opt-out policies and procedures based on feedback. Because I think it might address some of those concerns if we say semi-annually, the board, the district will bring back to the board the number of students who have elected to opt out, families have elected to opt out in which classes, just so that we can make sure it's not becoming an administrative or educational burden. That was just one thought I had on that.
Thank you.
Okay. When you were doing your presentation, Tina, to get back to those pieces, you said you were gonna show us the ones that you opted not to continue or not to repurchase.
Oh, okay, just give me 1 second. Just right here, it's on the same thing. Sure, so we put this out to our principals, to our staff who would be involved in them. So we have Freckle, Brain Pop, Hand to Mind. These are all just things that were no longer being used. Here's one, Newsella was no longer being used, or it was used by one person for $3,000, and we said, hey, is there something else we can do? So we got a subscription for all of the middle school through the library fund, so it doesn't even have to come out of the curriculum fund, right? And now the entire middle school will have access to it. I'm trying to see what else we have. Reading readiness screener in PALS, we no longer use it because we created a placement test. Tumbleweed, library north and south for $1,200. That was one that was determined not being used. So it's those kinds of things. And there's repeat things that we were doing, for no reason. Like we just looked at Pear Deck, which was with Go something. And it's a 3-year subscription, and sent it out to the principals, and they were like, we don't use that. So it's been good checks and balances for us.
So who is approving all of this? All this stuff that wasn't, there was just no checks and balances, we just kept renewing stuff?
Yep, but we're there now, so we're in a good spot. We're in a real good spot. I'm super excited about the great work that's been done and how we're gonna continue to move forward.
The ones that, if approved, the ones moving forward, which list will be available on the website?
All of this that you see here,
The K2 through 5, that these 3 tabs.
so then when you see the resources or the curricular components, these are all pieces that would have been purchased or have been renewed.
Okay. And then for the other members that weren't at the PPC meeting, I did ask the question because I was curious what the links went to and if it was the actual curriculum.
Oh, yeah.
I was nervous because I thought, hey, copyright, you can't do that, you can't put it up on the website. Turns out she showed us a link to where they go, it's like an overview of that curriculum. So a parent could go in, see general ideas of what's going to be taught, but it's not the actual curriculum. But then if they wanted to, the parent could contact the district, come in and actually see the curriculum in its detail. But we can't post that on the website for copyright reasons.
And how much are we saving by stuff that we're?
I don't have a total at this
Okay.
point, but it's significant. It's significant, and I will add that, my rock star over there, made some really great decisions with regard to ESSER funding. And so the ESSER funding, you all recall, was money that the government gave us for, COVID times, and we had 3 years to spend that down. This district did a phenomenal job, so I've said that multiple times, but to make the decisions that you did to ensure that the money was utilized for the right reasons. I think what happened is we had some money left over, right, through just really good conservative fiscal responsibility. And come July 1, they said, hey, if you have money left over, that's okay, you can use that money July 1 through September 1. And so we had, roughly 30 grand left over, so we were able to buy support for this year's budget cycle out of that 30,000, which really helps particularly in the moves that we needed to make going forward. So, again, just really good.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna because we're on this decision now, so I'm gonna make a motion to approve the 24-25 curriculum.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm gonna go back over to my little spot.
Okay, just let me know when you're ready, Chris.
Thank you.
Yep.
Amy, did you second that?
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Okay, discussion and decision on Title IX policies.
I believe you all received the documents in regard to that. What I will add to any of that conversation at all, and then that it really is truly a board decision that I will not, that's what you wanna do. But from a district perspective, we did work through the pieces and the policy that has been presented with our Neola rep. And those were the ones recommended, so that's the policy in front of you from Neola. You also received an email that I received just shortly before the PPC meeting, like maybe 2 hours before that meeting, with further recommendations. I will share with you that I am going to the WASDA Legal Conference that I go to every year up in Sturgeon Bay with all of the other superintendents. And we will be obviously having conversations about highly, legal pieces such as this, as well as Act 20, and probably Act 10. In regard to the deadline of August 1st, we have a policy in place currently for Title IX. Our current practice is that students, Title IX students are covered through Beth Stone, and our staff are covered through Amy Holly. With the new regulations in place for the new Title IX law, we only need one, so Amy Holly would be the coordinator for that, for all of it. And Amy Holly will go through the training in the event that we need to have a person just trained in that realm, in the event that something were to take place. She would go through training anyway, every single year for Title IX training, because that's just standard protocol. Beyond that, all of the other pieces, I defer to the board.
Anybody?
So this, just to update the rest of the board, so this was the topic of major conversation at the WASB convention. Not so much in presentation from their staff, but inter-district, there was significant, it was a buzz. I did approach and talk with staff counsel for WASB, Scott Mickish, and spoke to him about it, as well as Mark Kaposius, another attorney with Bob Breeson. And there's a lot of uncertainty about the validity of the mandate coming down from the executive branch. And their position is essentially that there's so much litigation out there against it right now of it being legal. And considering that there are major injunctions in states and other states, their recommendation was wait and see. Their real key was, and Scott mentioned this, was that as long as you have a policy in place and it's consistent with the 2020 update to Title IX. So there's two, just so you guys know, there's two, Title IX started in 1972. The original intent was to protect and afford women the same opportunities, girls, same opportunities as men. And the entire time since then, it's been all about that. In 2020, they made some updates there and required policies for it. This new one has some changes. Some of the changes actually are kind of good when it comes to process and streamlining how it's dealt with and allowing it for one person versus two. So there are some things that maybe could be good for a district, maybe help save money. But the addition of wording and classification of sex has really become hotly debated. And again, across districts, this is like the big thing right now. And so their position from the legal point of view was be patient, be patient. They also talked about state funding and not to worry too much about that they're still dealing with school districts that are having issues from 2020. So they said that that's not so much of an issue. But in talking with some of the other districts there, I found out that Arrowhead and Muskegon, Norway also both chose to delay any type of ruling. And what Scott had mentioned was taking a firm stand in either direction puts us at risk. If we agree to adopt a new policy, one of the challenges that's being expressed in the courts is the First Amendment rights of other students who don't necessarily agree with the terminology that was used by the executive branch. So there could be some First Amendment rights that could be violated, which could trigger some sort of litigation against the district. So if we choose to adopt, we have a risk. If we choose not to adopt and take a formal stance, no, we're not going to do it, that also could, if there was a gross negligent action of discrimination and harassment that took place as defined by the new standard. So in both cases, there's a chance. And so the common theme seemed to be pause, be prudent, be responsible, wait and see. So at least that's been the main recommendation. Now, I have my own personal thoughts. We can share those if you all want later. But I wanted to at least update you with what I heard at the conference, what I heard directly from some of the attorneys. and the general approach that seems to be taking hold from a lot of these other districts. That's at least my update.
And just to put some numbers behind that, right now there's 8 current lawsuits.
9.
We're up to 9 now, I was gonna say as of the 7th was when I had that. 26 states are included in those. 14 of those states are currently on hold per the courts, and we now have Moms of Liberty trying to spread out to all those. So those are all in motion right now. There's a lot of things in motion, and nothing is really setting on one thing.
What are we being asked to do tonight? I was given 2 sets of policies that had red lines and some boxes were checked. I was assuming we were supposed to read them and we're gonna make decisions which boxes to check that weren't checked.
Yeah, so we did not look at any of the options at PPC in terms of checking anything. We decided to defer the whole conversation to the board. My 2 cents from reading through everything, I think what I found most informative was something that wasn't included in the public packet, was part of that email that the district received from Neola. And specifically with the Kansas Federal District Court that forbid the implementation of Title IX, specifically that does apply across the entire country, because any of the schools that have children attending from the Young Americans Foundation or the Female Athletes United or Moms for Liberty, any of those kids are in our district or in our schools, that injunction applies to us, even though that ruling came out of Kansas. So reading through that email, all 3 of those groups were supposed to file a notice of which schools they had members or members' children in as of today. And then the Kansas court was going to issue a preliminary injunction by a separate order, I'm assuming telling us which districts and schools are involved. So I think based on that Kansas ruling forbids any districts with any kids whose parents belong to any of those organizations by approving the new Title IX. So I think until that is appealed, we can't really move forward with it based on that, but I think it would also be helpful for us to know if we're listed on any of those schools or districts. So I would actually suggest we just postpone making any decisions on this until August, until we can see what the list of those schools are, if there's any updates from that specific federal court ruling, because it influences us, and then gives Tina time to bring back information from her WASBO meeting at that point in time. Because my read based on this is we should not be making any steps right now until we know whether or not that injunction pertains to us in our district or not. But that's how I read that email.
And Tina, you said Amy was still gonna be trained in the new standards just in case, right?
I mean, from my opinion, I look to you guys to hash out this stuff as your policy meeting. So is what she recommended the same thing what you were agreeing we should do as well?
Yeah, we didn't wanna this one was a little tumultuous, so we thought rather than come with a committee recommendation, we wanted to present everything to the board and have the discussion in open.
Okay, so both as I understand it, is don't do anything tonight.
That would be my recommendation. That's my recommendation too, because I don't think we yet know whether or not the injunction is going to specifically pertain to our school district. And if it doesn't, then I think we have to then make a more formal decision with our own personal legal counsel as to whether or not we make a yay or nay decision on Title IX.
Because a lot of this stuff says check with your counsel, so we have not done that.
Exactly, no.
Okay, then let me ask you this then. So we've agreed to kind of wholeheartedly put Neola in place where stuff isn't there, right? There's 2 policies here, so what does that mean for this if we're doing that?
So 2266, if I have the numbers correctly, is the current policy that we approved when we blanket approved all the Neola policies. So that's everything related to Title IX up until
2020.
Up until the most recent changes.
This will, by saying, okay, this is what's basically in effect for our district now, and there are no changes based upon this post-August, somebody who suffered harassment post that date.
Correct.
There's no change, basically.
So we would still apply that policy for the time being, and then we will sit down and actually review that policy. Chris and I will at PPC and go through all the check mark boxes, whatever month it's on the agenda for PPC, which is like November. So in November, we would come back to you with that specific Neola policy 2266 and say these are the check boxes we recommend.
But what are we putting in place without checking boxes? I mean, there's two options for something, what's gonna be our option on those?
The current policy that is in
So we're
effect
trying
from
to
2020.
retrofit it to whatever we had in place as Hartland-Lakeside before?
Correct.
Yeah, so this is just one of those policies that we just blanket approved at our special board meeting. And I would say until we have a chance to sit down in PPC and actually hash out the 2266's options, we should just keep it as a blanket policy until our November meeting when we're gonna go over all the 2000s, unless something comes up before to make it urgent.
And then if there is a question of either or, it reverts back to whatever was in place before that.
And that's part of our WASB
And that's
policies.
the work you're kinda doing, basically?
Yeah, because during our PPC meeting, I asked, because our first set of policies coming up are the non-choice ones, as an example. And so I thought, well, if there's no choice, they're pretty legal, there's not a whole lot we have to do. So I said, oh, Tina, let's throw some more in there. And she said, are you crazy? You don't realize how much work we have to do when we prepare all these other ones. And I didn't think of that. I was thinking, oh, just throw it at us. She's like, you're crazy, we've got schools to run and open, so. Well, sometimes we could go faster, but we forget about the amount of work that they have to do to prepare the information for Amy and I to do the first round of review, so that we can come to you guys and say, okay, here's what we found, recommend and why, to hopefully keep us all in line. And save you time from having to read through everything so carefully. Kind of like when you read the finance stuff, you save us a lot of time.
Yeah, I get that. So what happens in August? I mean, obviously, if there's all these 9 court decisions are not gonna be made by August, so we're just basically finding out if we're on this list from stuff today.
That's my understanding from reading this emails. We'll find out if our district and any of our schools are on the list that are specifically affected by the Kansas federal injunction. And then Tina will have additional information from WASBO. And then at WASDA, sorry, and then at that point in time, we can reevaluate whether or not we're ready to make a decision on the new Title IX or what we're gonna do, but we'll have more information. I mean, right now, we have limited information, and according to this, we're putting ourselves at legal risk. I'm more concerned about that than 9 other court cases going on in other states that might not involve Wisconsin. This one potentially involves us.
So do we just, so understand when August comes up? So when the August meeting comes up, we may just do nothing?
Right.
Or we may get in detail on both of these?
It would be
Or just the new one?
just the new one, the 2264.
So it's like, okay, and and if we did it on the new one, it would just impact stuff that happened August 1st, 2024 forward.
Correct, and
Nothing we do will impact something that's happened up till now.
No,
Other than we might check different boxes once we beat this thing up at some point, but the
Correct.
basic structure is there.
Yep.
Thank you, I understand.
Anybody else?
if not, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to table the decision to adopt the new Title IX guidelines as presented by the federal executive branch until our next meeting. This will allow us additional time to thoroughly review the changes, consult with legal counsel, and ensure that we fully understand the implications for our district.
I'll second it.
Okay, no, yeah, and then
Discussion?
did you put a date in there? Cause want to make sure when we say defer that we have a timeline for ourselves when we're gonna bring it back
He
again.
said August.
Did he?
Yeah, you said August.
Did I? I
Yeah.
was just reading what I had written. Until our next regular meeting.
Oh, I thought you said,
Okay,
didn't you say August?
No.
which would be August, okay,
Here.
unless you're gonna add another regular meeting between now and then, okay.
So the only thing I would just say is that I worded that as the next regular meeting because at the annual meeting, we don't go through some of that. So if we needed to do it, for some reason, there was a requirement or we felt like there was an urgency to it, we might have to call a special meeting for that, if you wanted to do it in August. If not, the default would pull to the next regular meeting.
But in August, don't we have our regular meeting and our annual meeting?
I don't remember.
I think we do.
We do.
It's a
There's
really
two,
long night,
where it's
uh-huh,
one first and then
Correct.
Annual's
after,
first,
and then
yes.
yeah.
Which one?
Annual's first.
Annual's first, and then it goes to, okay,
Yeah.
so then it would default to that. So it's not August in name, it just is the next regular meeting. At least that's how I did it, if you wanna amend it, you can make a motion to amend it to August.
Okay.
Okay, so I seconded it, so. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So Title IX policy update is tabled till August. All right, discussion on 24-25 transportation.
Yeah, I just really wanted to provide an opportunity to just speak to the public in regard to where we're at with transportation. This has been an ongoing thing, and we've worked really hard to try to get all the information. Remember we had at the very beginning when we first were kind of discovering what it is, and we think this and we think that, and we're just trying to get it out there. There may have been some like misnomers or ideas that we didn't know because of Dousman's rules as far as bus stops and whatnot. So this is the bottom line. What is out there is the bottom line, and this is where we're at. So in July, the emails were sent to families to notify them, sorry, I need my glasses, I don't wanna sit here and sweat, to notify them if they are in a hazardous zone or a pay-to-ride zone. Maureen has worked tirelessly on the 24-25 student list and has provided it to Dousman Transportation so that they can begin working on bus stops and routes. We have sent follow-up emails will go out this week to families on pay-to-ride routes that have not signed up for busing yet. Then in August, the final notice to families to pay-to-ride applications will go out, and bus stops and bus routes will be communicated to families. In the early fall, we will begin our transportation committee that will be formed and starting to have those conversations. Now I know because earlier has stated that I've gotten to know some families recently, and I'm excited about that, so please come see me if you have questions. But some questions are like, you can't tell me that this subdivision or this crosswalk is safe. And no, I can't tell you that. I'm just gonna be point blank honest. No, I can't tell you that's safe. I'm telling you, Waukesha has told us that it is safe, right? That is not Tina Vogelman saying, hey, that's safe, right? We have to go through the process, right? So, as you know, how many were deemed, like 15? Areas? How many different areas have we discovered through? A lot has been discovered. So really, really great process. I know it's hard. I know it's been difficult, but we're getting there, and we're really excited about moving forward to try to figure out what we're going to do next. There are going to be conversations about traffic flow. There are going to be conversations about what do we as a district, as a board, what do we deem as unsafe that hasn't been deemed unsafe? I think that alone will set some people's minds at rest, because I think that's the nervous part. Like, I can't believe that's unsafe, or that's deemed safe. I can't believe it either. I'm just gonna say it. But we have to go through the process together as a team. So that was really all I wanted. I just wanted the opportunity to speak our piece in regard to the transportation deal.
Thank you. Thank you. Amy, the monthly finance report?
Yes, so in your packet, you have the board financial report for June. As Matt stated, we're ending the year at a great positive. Cash in bank is looking good at 5.7 million at this time between all of our accounts. I just wanted to restate that we had an excellent year in interest, over 5% most of the year. So Fund 10, because of that interest, we were able to accumulate $230,000 extra just from interest. 230. And then Fund 46, our capital improvement, it was just over 70,000. So we had almost 300,000 in interest alone, which is fantastic. When you look at the actual financial statements, you will see Fund 10 currently is showing a surplus of $593,000. That is looking at most of the receivables. Our biggest receivable will be the August tax payment. So I do book that obviously at this time. Most of the grants have been entered. The only grant I have not entered at this time, which will be about $63,000 for the final claim, is our ESSER 3. But there are some payables that have not been entered yet. So as you can imagine, when the fiscal year ends, we haven't received all of our bills. So looking at what I do know that is outstanding, I consider that a wash at this time. So hopefully we have all of that entered by the end of July. So when I present in August, you should have a closer to final financial statement at that time, but I do believe we'll end up right around this number for Fund 10. Fund 21 is our donation fundraising account. So that is kind of an in and out. It can carry a balance so that if we do have more expenses than receivables, it's okay because that fund just carries over from year to year. Fund 27 does need to zero. When I was booking the last payables on Thursday, I had not done the transfer knowing there'll be more. So it is showing a negative, but rest assured, by the time you see it next time, it will not have that negative number attached to it. Fund 46 is just that interest account that I referred to. And then Fund 50 is our food service. It does show a negative, but please remember we did pay down some of that fund balance to purchase some equipment, so it's not a true negative because that was required by DPI that we spend some of that down. And then Fund 81 is our Lakeside Academy. She also does show a negative, but a lot of that is from that playground. So again, don't be too alarmed there. But one of the great things that we did for the first time, well, since I've been here, there was a recommendation to budget for a transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 46. We did set that at $250,000. So the next topic that I did have is that I would love for the board to consider and decide to do that transfer of $250,000 because we do have the fund balance available to do that. Are there any questions on the monthly financials though? Okay, great.
So not necessarily in the monthly financials, but we have a total profit so far at the end of the fiscal year of $512,000. That is excluding the $250,000 transfer to Fund 46?
Right, because at this time it is not entered because
Okay.
the board does need to
Okay.
approve that.
So would you recommend transferring more than the $250,000 considering we have double that amount of excess this year, or would you suggest just adding that to savings?
I would just add that to the fund balance. We're always trying to grow that fund balance as well.
Okay.
But since we did budget for the Fund 46 transfer, I do think we can do that.
Okay.
And these funds, they're internally managed by that, or are they kept in separate accounts at the institution?
For Fund 46, that does have to have a separate account.
Okay.
That is the only one that is required. We do have the money market, so we can get that interest.
Yeah, that was
So-
like
5.5% right now. So that is not required, but we do that just so we can get the interest. Otherwise, our checking does not earn interest.
Okay, so we have a discussion and decision on the Fund 46 transfer.
Madam President,
Yes.
I'd like to motion to approve the Fund 46 transfer of $250,000.
Second.
All in favor? Or
Aye.
well, we already had discussion, but okay.
Aye.
Fund 46 transfer approved. All right, just future board or committee action or discussion items. Anybody? Yes.
Something. And I think Amy had maybe talked about it at one point, but I'd like us to look at the district's stance on AI.
Okay.
That was very heavily emphasized at the conference, the summer symposium for WASB. And all the speakers, pretty much, and some key school districts that presented had said that they have put policies in place. Now, there's difference in thoughts on whether or not you implement it, you outlaw it, or you teach with it. But again, they're recommending at least having something in place as a policy on how the district handles it.
So do you want this to be an agenda item on a full board meeting, or do you want to bring it through PPC?
It could go either way. I mean, if the board feels like they'd like to give us direction on what to pursue perhaps and investigate a little further, I think I'd rather do that than be the Lone Ranger and say, I believe this, and then Amy and I run off and start doing something, and it maybe isn't what the collective thoughts are of the board. And again, I'm not necessarily saying that we have to decide something, but if we could give the committee some direction, because our goal as a working committee is to pursue things that we don't have time to do here. So if you can give us a flavor of what to pursue, I think that would help. What do you think, Amy?
I do, it might be helpful either for us, I don't know if WASB through their online learning portal has any information out there yet about AI in education, or if we can get any additional resources or information to our fellow board members prior to that meeting, just that we have some basis to discuss it other than just relatively uninformed opinion, at least for myself.
Sure. I mean,
I can
I
do
learned
some,
enough where I could do some real basics for you in 5 to 10 minutes at some point, if you want. If you want something that's a little more comprehensive, it probably will take more of your time to find a WASB training, if there is one. I'm not sure, I didn't look. I know in person, so.
You've got a couple articles regarding it, but nothing really training wise.
Yeah, and what I could also do, there was a couple school districts that presented, and I could reach out to them for their policy stance. One of the leaders was Sun Prairie School District. They have a really comprehensive policy and approach to using and controlling. And maybe for a start, I see if I can get my hands on that, send it to you for review, and then as a discussion item at a future meeting, that would maybe give you some perspective to be able to give Amy that
we should
direction.
also be able to search in Neola for any AI policies across the country, so that might be something to do as well. You guys know that you can search for anything in Neola. So like, you could pick a word like AI and it will pull up policies, AI policies from like any district that has Neola, like in the country.
Let me ask you, doing that, as I understand it, part of the benefit of us moving to Neola is that they offer some sort of indemnity or liability if somebody sues you over your policies. If you find something through a search like that, does that necessarily mean that that's something they stand behind, or is that just something that a district has implemented and we don't know?
Oh, I think it's something the district, we'd have to go off the fact that it's something the district has implemented, especially if we.
It means
Yeah.
that it exists out there.
Yes.
We don't necessarily know. So I think what we might have to do, and I don't know, is there a search function in any of the remaining stuff we are yet to read through and approve? To be able to look for that?
Not
or
that
to-
everybody has access to, no.
Is it something where maybe we could ask our Neola rep, hey, in this package, did it cover?
I mean, I can look at it. We did blanket accept board policies 7540 on artificial intelligence. So
So there is one
do we already
policy out
have
there, but
something out
your
there right now?
search could pull up something that a district came up with on their own.
Oh, and
Neola
absolutely.
Yes.
may or may not
Yes.
stand behind, but
Yes.
it's something a district is doing.
Yes.
Okay.
Just
What's
to
the-
give us ideas
Yeah,
of
no,
framework
I'm not being
or
critical, I
whatever,
just wanna
yeah.
understand what we'd be looking at if we saw something like that.
Yes.
Tina, what's that number again, 7 what?
7540.08.
I can't look that up, can I? I don't think so.
You can't.
So, hold on. So it's not so much for us necessarily to have a policy. That's why I wanted to bring it up as a discussion item. I don't want to drive necessarily policy. I think we should look at
What are we gonna
having
do with
a
it?
group discussion about what is the sentiment of our community in our approach to either using it in education, controlling it, or dealing with it. It's here to stay. It's like Google. Oh, Google's gonna change the world. Well, it kind of did. AI is a whole nother animal, and let me tell you, there was 100% emphasis at this conference that you better be prepared for it, be aware of it, and at least have some sort of position for your district, whatever it is. Because if we do nothing, it's gonna be happening in the classrooms, I think. So,
Okay.
sorry, I'm talking
No,
more than I
yep,
should, because it's
yep.
supposed to be just this, but I'm trying to give you the rationale so I can tell you what I'm talking about. I'm not looking for a policy, I'm looking for us to have a
We have
collective
discussion, yeah, so it needs to go on a regular board meeting.
That's what I think,
Yeah.
that's what I think initially.
Okay. So we need to schedule our workshops, and let's just call them that, they're workshops for our strategic plan. So the question, I guess I would say is, if we do hire somebody, which it sounds like a recommendation is coming down the line at the next meeting, do we wanna have a workshop before we have that person to get our organization maybe set in a, I don't know, if it would help us with that initial meeting with whoever we hire, or do we wanna wait? So, right, yeah. Or do we wanna just wait until,
Can I
yeah,
make a recommendation? So, I pulled this from closed because of the situation that we're in. I did share, with you previously, but I'll share an open, that, the administration in the district office currently is working through, as well as the principals, Hardwiring Excellence in Education, the 9 Principle Framework by Janet Pilcher. I've gone through this process. It's a really, really great process, and it really has to do with culture, has to do with eliminating the we, they, and kind of building a foundation of how we all work together. It comes with a single sheet for you to fill out. It's a very easy read. I don't know that I need to treat it like a classroom for you. I think that all of you are professionals and in your own time have the ability to figure things out if you wanna write notes as you go along. My greatest contribution to this process would be that I recommend that you read through this, or at least skim through it to pull out key points and factors, so that as you go through this process, you're at least speaking the same language. Because this is the basis of what I'm leading this district through as we go through just in our own culture climate. So that would be my highest recommendation. I will put together, I already kind of have an idea of who I'd like to bring in to help through this process, because it's kind of serving as a dual purpose with some public relations pieces that we need to have in place. So I already think I know what we need to do for that, and I would recommend your first step be to work through this on your own time in the next month, and then come to the next meeting with a recommendation of the firm as well as the calendar, and I will help him facilitate that with you to get that going. And then I'm going to step away and just be part of the process as a participant.
okay, so you're saying that at the next meeting, you're coming with a recommendation, which we'll have to vote on to hire potentially. So we'll be pushed into September then for a potential first meeting with this guy.
Unless you wanna give me the authority to start to have those conversations prior to, and we can have a meeting to approve it at some point prior to August 19th.
Do we need to give you formal approval? I don't think so, that
No,
conversation.
No, just a direction that this is the direction we wanna go, and we recommend that you bring that. There doesn't have to be a vote. We've already been down that road.
So what do you guys think?
I like the idea of us having at least a conversation workshop before meeting with someone. It would at least allow us a chance to talk, show what we believe is important, what we've heard from the community, what defines us as a community, and at least put together some of our thoughts. And then hopefully this outside source would help guide us in taking those and turning them into something tangible versus starting from scratch and then having to identify. So maybe you were alluding to that with the suggestion.
I'm just trying to figure out timeline because we have a pretty heavy August schedule with the annual meeting, so.
I will tell you that this person will be really focused on the community stakeholder piece. So it will be surveys and recommendations and small group work. The number one thing, the very first step, like we talked about, is this group and trying to get that figured out. If I can get him in here prior to August 19th to try to just do kind of an overview, and you guys can get a feel for that when what that's gonna look like. I will work to try to get that to happen. I will see him next week, so
Well, I think we should do that.
I'd recommend probably an online version, because then we can set it at a time that's convenient and we can get to it.
An online version of what?
Workshop.
A workshop online.
Like,
Instead of being in person, we just do it online, we do it as a Zoom meeting. To accommodate schedules, sometimes it's hard to physically do.
why don't we try to schedule it in person first, and then if we struggle to do that, we can make it online. I think it's
I thought you
really
I thought you were saying have a conversation, but I didn't realize you meant,
bring him here.
yeah.
Well, can we give Tina the direction to move forward, because we don't have to vote
Yeah.
on it,
Yeah.
and she can move forward with
So move
that
forward,
process and getting that established, and then in the meantime, we can maybe set up a workshop for the five of us after having read through most of this.
Let's do that.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. Very, very good, I will do that.
Can you give us any sense, okay, so you said that he's gonna be very focused on the stakeholder involvement. Just in your previous experience, do you have like a rough idea of what his steps are, like chronologically?
From a facilitation perspective, he's gonna come here, he's gonna get a feel for all the buildings, and he's gonna, tour and kind of get an idea, he's gonna talk to this, it'll start here, of course, and he will start to lay this whole thing out, ask you guys to guide through the questions, what are you thinking, where are you at? He will create surveys, he will put them out to families, he will put them out to students, he will put it out to staff, probably more than once, get an idea after you guys have talked about the pieces, right? And then come back and then we'll start to build out what this looks like. He's very comprehensive in what he does. He does a lot of strategic planning across the state.
In education, just in education?
Yes, just in education.
It's a valid
Yep, no, it is,
Yeah,
it is.
it
I'm
is.
sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. I take that back.
I didn't take it as an insult.
It's like- Yes, in education.
Okay,
Because he involved the greater community outside of the direct contact with the school district.
Like businesses?
The other families that don't have children.
Like
Oh,
taxpayers, I mean?
yeah. Anybody that's in our tax base, he would be,
Okay,
He would be-
because you had said parents and school, and
Right.
you didn't say general community, so I'm just asking.
yep,
Because I don't wanna have us make decisions in a vacuum.
nope.
There's thousands of other people too that don't have children.
He also
Have a
guides
stake.
multiple school districts through referendum processes as well.
Okay.
We don't need that.
okay, alright, well, let's do that.
Thank you, team.
Does anyone have anything else? Okay,
Do we need to set the date?
Yep.
Oh, sorry, I
yep,
was jumping
yep,
ahead.
no,
I
yep,
forgot.
that's the next thing. So PPC,
You're traveling, Chris, you let me know.
I'm out of the mix until August. So, beginning of August is when I'm back.
That's fine, because that's when we would be, the week of the 5th.
Because school board meeting should be that 19th.
Let me see something.
It could be the week of the 5th or the week of the 12th, whichever works best for this group.
If we did the week of the 12th, is that too tight, do you believe, for what we'll be tasked with to be able to present to the board within a week?
No. Remember, these are the ones that are just kind of.
I know, just in case anything else you see. Okay, for me then it would be better because then I come back and then I'm only here 3 days and I'm gone to another conference. So the week of the 5th is a little,
Tight for you?
it's just a little tough. I mean, I can make things work, I could do Wednesday the 7th if you feel like it's necessary to get it in that week. If not, then I would move it into the week of the 12th.
Are you available on Monday, the 12th?
Sure.
Okay. Because my Mondays are pretty open, other than around 2 to 3. But otherwise, you name a time on Monday the 12th and I can make it work.
If we did like late afternoon, maybe 4:30, then it doesn't interfere with work and it can hopefully get the administrators out of here at a reasonable time to get home. Or if you wanna do, hey, I'll always offer, you guys wanna do 6 AM, man? I'll meet you at 6. Just offer.
What time would you have to leave your house?
Right?
So just 4 o'clock on Monday the 12th?
4 o'clock on Monday the 12th.
Okay.
finance,
We are at 9 AM the same day.
oh,
9 AM Monday.
awesome.
Is that too much for you, Tina? 2
No,
on Monday?
no, when do you leave and need plane ride material by?
Tomorrow morning,
But how long will you be gone for?
How long will you be gone?
4:30 in the morning I leave.
How long will you be gone for?
How about if I I tell you privately, so I'm not announcing it to everybody that's listening.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that, look at me.
That way my family is protected.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, question about we've got the annual meeting scheduled for 6:30. Can we push that earlier since we have to do the regular board meeting after? Just so we're not
What time did you say?
super late.
I missed
Like,
it.
why don't we make the annual meeting like 5 o'clock?
Sure.
What about for stakeholders who might wanna come to the annual meeting who have to work? Can we do even like 5:30 or
5:30?
6?
Sure.
Just to give people
Yeah,
time to
let's
get.
do 5:30. What did we do last year?
I have 5:30.
Yeah, okay, 5:30. And then, I mean, the annual meeting goes well, I guess I shouldn't, no, that's not actually true.
We had a great discussion last year.
Yes, we
So I think it was about an hour, wasn't it? And the annual meeting started at 6:30 last year, I just pulled up last year.
Oh, it did.
Yeah, that was, we were here till midnight.
Yeah, we're,
Yeah, let's try to move that up.
And we think 5:30 will be late enough for folks who are working and wanna attend?
Everybody works different schedules, so.
Okay.
It's
I mean, heck, there's school boards that do their regular board meetings during the day. I
What? I'm so sorry.
said some school boards do their regular board meeting in
In the middle of the
the
day.
day.
Wow.
And some do policy meetings at 6 a.m.
If I wanted to do that, I would have been a surgeon. I'm not a surgeon for many good reasons, yes. Okay.
Okay,
So what do we decide on time?
so 5:30 for the annual meeting. On
And
the
then we go
19th.
right into
It
the,
goes right into the regular.
Yep.
I think we usually take a small break,
Yep.
depending on time, but.
And I mean, I think we'll be conscious of what that agenda looks like. So, okay,
That's in the other room?
what?
It'll be in the other room or this room?
It'll be in the big room, yeah.
So for the meeting minute purposes, we're saying the school board meeting will be at 5:30 p.m.
The community meeting.
That's the annual meeting.
The annual meeting will be 5:30
That wasn't in
and the regular board meeting will be like as followed, or however you wanna word it, so we're not putting a timestamp
and
on it.
isn't there also the annual budget meeting at that time too?
The annual meeting and budget
They're the
meeting are the
same, yeah.
same.
Okay, for some reason I thought we had broken them out into 3 separate ones last year.
They used to, but we did ask legal last year if we could combine the
Okay.
two, just so it's a little less
Perfect.
confusing.
Okay.
Chris, let me know when you're good.
Yeah, so the annual meeting, August 19th, 5:30 p.m., school board meeting directly following.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Is that fair?
yes.
Okay, thank you. I think anything else that I need to do, I can do after, so if you wanna go ahead and do something, go for it.
Okay, well, I move, a motion to move to adjourn at 7:57.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thunderstorm.
There's another storm too.
When's your 1-year anniversary?
The 17th.
Really?
It's gonna be 19, so.
Yes, thank you.
It's been a ride, right?
I know,
It's been fun, I love it.
1 year.
Why don't you guys
Anniversary, September
23rd, yes.
kinda go through the ones I gave you?